It was still dark when Lucas Bennett slid his keycard into the door of his glass-walled corner office. Snow clung to his shoulders. His breath fogged the polished surface of the conference table. Another day. Another battle. But something felt off. His chair was turned away from the desk. Odd. He approached slowly. And that's when he saw them. Two tiny figures curled together on the leather seat like fragile birds, wrapped in a thin blanket, their cheeks flushed with sleep. One clutched a threadbare stuffed rabbit. The other held a note folded neatly on her chest. Lucas unfolded it with trembling fingers. 5 words in shaky handwriting. "They are yours. Sarah." He staggered back. The chair, his throne, was no longer empty. Suddenly, one of the girls stirred. Blinked. And in that single, searching glance, he saw his own mother's eyes staring back at him. Eyes that didn't lie. "Are you, our daddy?" The other whispered, barely audible in the hush of sunrise. Lucas froze. The note fluttered to the floor. Outside, the first light of dawn sliced through the skyline, cutting straight into the man who'd built empires, yet had no idea he'd already lost the most important seat in his life. Lucas didn't remember kneeling. 1 second, he was standing in the center of his corner office, the next, he was crouched before the leather chair where 2 small girls blinked up at him like a mirror split in half. The taller one's hand clutched the note like a secret, though he'd already read it. A name he hadn't said out loud in 5 years. Sarah. A name that once meant little more than a passing kindness at an office party, and now hovered over him like a storm cloud, full of thunder and impossible echoes. The twins looked calm. Not frightened, not confused. Just waiting, as if they had known this moment would come. As if it was he who needed time to catch up. I'm Lucas, he said, voice hollow. It was the only thing he could think to say that didn't feel like a lie. The one on the left, Ellie, he'd soon learn, pointed to the massive windows behind him. "Mommy said we'd find you here," she whispered. Her voice was small, but her words cracked open something in him. Lucas turned away, just slightly, long enough to collect the scattered shards of his breath. His reflection stared back from the windows, perfect suit, perfect tie, perfect posture, and eyes full of panic. The kind of man who knew how to fire a VP without blinking, yet now couldn't speak a sentence to a 5-year-old. "Who brought you here?" he finally managed. The other girl, Ava, reached down into her coat pocket and pulled out a keycard. His keycard. She handed it over solemnly like a royal decree. "The cleaning lady let us in. Mommy said to wait for you in your special chair." It was absurd. Impossible. Illegal. And yet, utterly undeniable. Lucas stepped back and sat heavily on the glass coffee table, ignoring how the cold bit through his tailored slacks. He looked at the note again, creased now, slightly damp. The ink had smudged around one word. Yours. There was no last name. No date. Just the implication of a lifetime. A knock startled him. Claire peeked in through the frosted door. "Sir. You're not on the schedule until," her eyes fell on the twins. She stopped mid-step. "Oh." Lucas stood. Fast. Defensive. "Cancel my meetings. All of them." Claire blinked, professional instincts warring with the obvious curiosity, and a flicker of maternal recognition in her gaze. "Yes, sir. And find out how they got past security. Pull all the footage. Now." "Of course." She paused at the door. "Lucas, do you want me to call someone? Family?" He shook his head before she could finish. There was no one left. Once alone, Lucas turned back to the girls, who now sat cross-legged on his chair, flipping through a company brochure like it was a storybook. Ellie pointed to a photo of Lucas shaking hands with a foreign dignitary. "That's you," she said matter-of-factly. Yes. You look madder in pictures, Ava added. Lucas almost laughed, almost. Instead, he dropped to one knee and asked, "How old are you?" 4.5, they said in unison. "Where's your mom?" A pause. Ellie looked down. Ava answered. "She went to heaven. Last month." The silence that followed didn't feel like silence at all. It felt like glass cracking under pressure. "She said you'd take care of us," Ellie said. "Even if you didn't remember." Lucas stared at them, really stared. The same eyes. Chestnut brown with flecks of gold, like his mother's in the late autumn light. The way they blinked, slow and steady, never flinching. Sarah had known what she was doing. She'd left them where Lucas couldn't avoid seeing them. Where he'd have to decide something. But he wasn't ready. Not for this. The room, once his sanctuary of control, now pulsed with chaos. His inbox beeped. 3 missed calls from the CFO. A calendar alert reminded him of the Davis merger briefing in 20 minutes. But all he could hear was Ellie whispering, "We don't snore if you're worried. Mommy taught us to sleep quietly." His phone buzzed again. He silenced it. "Are you hungry?" he asked. The twins looked at each other. Nodded. Lucas took a deep breath, straightened his tie, then loosened it. "Let's find some pancakes," he said. The words tasted foreign. Human. He didn't recognize his own voice, and yet the girls smiled as if they did. As he led them down the hall, 2 tiny hands gripping his fingers like lifelines, Lucas knew something irreversible had already begun. A CEO could walk away from deals. From press. From boardrooms. But not from a pair of eyes that looked exactly like his. And somewhere deep inside, a voice he hadn't heard in years whispered. "You're not in control anymore." He didn't remember the night clearly, not in the way that mattered. There was no candlelit memory, no shared laughter echoing in his mind, just a blur of soft music, cheap champagne, and the hollow comfort of company he never planned to keep. It was 5 years ago, a company retreat in Miami. She had been part of the marketing team for a quarter, quiet, observant, with a wit that flickered behind her eyes like the edges of a hidden flame. Her name had been Sarah Matthews, and he had barely said it twice. But she remembered everything. Lucas scrolled through her LinkedIn profile now, long since dormant. No updates. No photo. Just a faint shadow of someone who once tried to build something in a tower of ambition that never looked down. She had worked hard, made no noise when she left, and had apparently walked away carrying more than silence. In the photo, the twins sat at his breakfast table, sipping orange juice from oversized mugs like they had lived there forever. Mia, his daughter from his marriage, peeked around the corner, wide-eyed and cautious. She didn't speak but didn't hide either. "Are they your friends?" she finally asked. Ava looked up. "We're his other daughters." Lucas watched the sentence land in Mia's chest like a soft punch. She stared at him, lips slightly parted, not angry, just curious. "You never told me I had sisters." "I didn't know," Lucas replied, and it was the first truth he had said all morning. Mia blinked. "Do they stay?" The question sliced clean. There was no room in Lucas's head for softness. Not with shareholder meetings, competitors circling, and his own name trending on social media with words like secret children and paternity scandal trailing behind it like spilled ink. But none of that seemed to matter when Ellie gently reached for Mia's hand and said, "We brought drawings." Later that night, Lucas sat at his desk and unfolded the backpack they'd come with. Inside were 2 stuffed animals, well-worn bears with names stitched into their feet, and a side pocket with a folded sheet of yellowed paper. His hands trembled. It wasn't the weight of the paper that scared him. It was her handwriting. "Lucas. If you're reading this, I'm gone. I know this isn't how you imagined learning about us, about them. But I've run out of options, and I never wanted them to feel alone. You don't owe me anything, Lucas. You never did. But they're yours. Not just by blood, but by the pieces of your soul that show up in their laughter, in their stubbornness, in the way they stand straight even when they're scared. I told them stories about you. I made you bigger than life because I needed them to believe the world still had magic. Forgive me for the fantasy. But now they need more than dreams. They need you. Sarah. He read it again. And again. He didn't cry. Not then. Not yet. Instead, he walked down the hallway to the bedroom where all three girls slept, one queen mattress pushed into the corner to hold the chaos of their new constellation. Ava had one foot draped over Mia's back. Ellie curled her fingers around the nightlight cord like it anchored her to something solid. Lucas knelt beside them and whispered, I don't know how to do this. But I promise I'll try. The next morning, Mrs. Chen, the nanny who raised Mia more than he did, handed him a breakfast plate with a side of unspoken judgment. You're late, she said. For what? For being a father. Lucas didn't answer. But he noticed how she left 3 lunchboxes instead of one on the kitchen counter. Labeled them too. One said Mia, one said Ava, one Ellie. All with hearts drawn in black marker. He didn't know why that made his throat close up. At the office, Davis, the competitor who once played golf with Lucas and now circled like a shark, cornered him in the elevator. Quite the headlines, he said with a smile that reeked of blood. You always were good at surprise mergers. Lucas stared straight ahead. Try to enjoy the silence while it lasts, James. Oh, I am. Just wondering how the board feels about a CEO whose parenting skills were discovered through a press leak. Lucas didn't flinch, but part of him cracked. When he returned home that night, Ellie had drawn a picture. 3 girls. 1 man. A tall one with a tie. Above it, she wrote, Our family. Missing pieces found. He stared at it, unable to speak. Do you like it? She asked. He nodded. But the real answer was this, he had never seen anything so terrifying or so perfect. Outside, the city screamed and clicked and traded stocks and reputations. Inside, Lucas Bennett stood quietly in the hallway, holding a crayon drawing. And for the first time, the silence felt like a beginning. He stood before the boardroom window, the city behind him a shimmering wall of cold glass and golden blur, but his reflection wouldn't hold still. There were shadows in his eyes now. Not from lack of sleep, but from what he could no longer ignore. Claire had just handed him the results. The DNA report. Official. Unshakable. Lucas Bennett was, in every legal and biological sense, the father of Ava and Ellie. He wasn't shocked. The proof had been in their eyes since the morning they called him daddy without hesitation, as if they'd been practicing the word all their lives. Still, paper made it real. Paper carried the weight of courts, of legacies, of futures. James Davis was already weaponizing the news. An anonymous leak to a media outlet had painted Lucas as reckless. Irresponsible. A secret family, a scandal, an empire destabilized by emotion. He's collapsing, Davis had said in a private call someone leaked back to Claire. Bennett's losing the plot. The company will follow. Lucas didn't respond. Not publicly. Not yet. Because something more urgent had unfolded at home. That morning, Mia had refused to eat her cereal. She gets 2 of you, Mia said quietly, pushing the spoon in circles. I barely get 1. Lucas's heart cracked in half. He had fought so hard to build a kingdom. A skyline throne. But his daughter, his first daughter, felt dethroned the moment 2 strangers walked into their lives with the same last name tucked inside a letter. Later that night, he found Mia curled on the sofa, clutching a teddy bear too young for her age. Do you like them more than me? She asked, her voice barely audible. He sat beside her, helpless. No. I don't like them more. I'm just trying to catch up to everything. I missed too much. You miss me too, she whispered. Even when I'm right here. The words hit harder than any press scandal ever could. The following morning, Mrs. Chen entered the penthouse with 2 worried lines between her brows. Sir, she said, the girls are asking about their mom again. Did you tell them she's gone? I did, Mrs. Chen said gently. But they're asking, why you didn't know about them. Why you weren't there when she got sick. Lucas swallowed. He hadn't read the second letter. The one still buried inside Ellie's small backpack. He'd been afraid. Cowardly. But now, he opened it at dawn with hands that trembled in places he didn't know had nerves. Lucas. If you are reading this, you've met them. They've met you. And now, the truth must be whole. I never wanted to raise them alone. But I didn't want them raised in doubt. You were brilliant and broken that night we met. I knew it then. You looked like a man chasing shadows, and I didn't want to be another one. But you gave me something real. And I gave them your name in secret. They don't know I cried the night I wrote your name on their birth certificates. They only know you were meant to be part of their story, someday. And now, it's someday. If you're scared, so was I. But don't let that stop you. They deserve a father who fights for them, not just legally, but emotionally. They deserve the version of you I believed in, even when you weren't watching. Be that man. Sarah. Lucas folded the letter slowly. His hand rested on the name, Sarah. And for the first time, he grieved her, not as a woman he barely remembered, but as the mother of the 2 lives now tangled in his own. He didn't go to work that day. Instead, he took the girls to the park, the one Mia always asked to visit but he never had time for. They played in the grass while pigeons scattered under the weight of the morning breeze. Mia held Ava's hand. Ellie ran ahead, hair dancing like firelight. At one point, Ellie looked back. Daddy? The word still stung every time, like a memory reborn. Can we stay here forever? Lucas knelt beside her. We'll find a home that's even better. That afternoon, a call came in from Claire. Urgent. The board had scheduled a vote. James Davis had made his move. A media exposé was timed to release tomorrow. Claims of erratic behavior, investor concern, instability. Lucas stood at the edge of the conference table later that night, holding the drawing Ellie had made again, a house, 3 girls, 1 man. This time, he noticed a new addition, a tree, and beside it, a swing. The swing was empty. But a name floated beneath it, Mom. He didn't flinch. He knew what to do. At dawn, Lucas dressed in a dark sweater and walked with all 3 girls to the place he hadn't visited in over 5 years, a cemetery just outside the city. Quiet. Cold. The wind whispered secrets through the stones. They stopped at a small plot, worn but lovingly kept. Sarah Matthews. The twins knelt beside it, as if pulled by gravity. Mia stayed back, unsure. Lucas stood still. He placed the letter back under the flowers. You were right, he said to the marble. I'm late, but I'm here. Behind him, Ava held his hand. Ellie looked up, eyes shimmering with morning light. You're not scared anymore, she whispered. Lucas blinked. No, he said. Because love doesn't always arrive with trumpets. Sometimes it tiptoes in, wearing mismatched socks and clutching a backpack full of letters. The conference room at Bennett Tech had never felt this silent. No humming projectors, no clinking coffee cups. Just the weight of eyes. Dozens of them. All trained on Lucas Bennett as he stood in front of the board, holding a single piece of paper, Sarah's final letter. He hadn't planned a speech. But he knew the script by heart now, not because it was rehearsed, but because it had been etched into his chest. 3 weeks ago, I walked into this building thinking I knew exactly what mattered: strategy, shares, control. I sat in that chair believing I had mastered the art of living without feeling. A pause. Breath. And then I found 2 girls sleeping in it. Murmurs. They weren't part of any plan. They weren't listed in any merger. But they were mine. In blood, in soul, and now, by choice. One of the directors adjusted his glasses. Davis shifted uncomfortably. I've reviewed your concerns. I've read the headlines. And I've considered your fears. You think I've become a liability. Silence. You're wrong. Lucas unfolded the letter, not to read it, but to show it. This is a letter from the mother of my children. Not just the twins, but Mia, too. Because I've failed her as well, behind the curtain of executive brilliance. He looked toward Claire. She met his gaze with something more than professionalism. Maybe respect. Maybe quiet hope. I'm not stepping down. Shock rippled like wine through a wheat field. I'm evolving. Effective immediately, I'm splitting my role. Claire will act as interim COO. I will retain strategic oversight, while taking time to become something I never had the courage to be before. His voice softened. A father. Another pause. Then. If that makes this company weaker, vote me out. But if you believe, as I do, that leadership without humanity is just hollow noise in a glass tower, then stand with me. No pitch deck. No bar charts. Just truth. Davis rose first. Cold smile. Calculated contempt. Poetic, Lucas. But we're not running a parenting seminar. We're running a billion-dollar firm. Lucas didn't flinch. And yet, we've built nothing as valuable as a child's trust. The vote began. One hand raised. Then another. And another. Davis's hand never moved. But it didn't have to. Lucas had won. Not just the vote. But something deeper. The right to live without pretending anymore. That evening, Lucas walked through the door of his new home. Not the penthouse. The craftsman house with a crooked mailbox, a backyard, and a porch light that flickered like a heartbeat. Ellie was drawing chalk suns on the sidewalk. Ava was watering a pot that held nothing but hope and seeds. Mia was making bracelets out of yarn. They looked up and grinned as one. You're back. Ava cried, rushing toward him. Lucas dropped his briefcase, he didn't need armor here, and knelt to catch them. Forever, he whispered. That weekend, he built the tree swing. Not with contractors. With his own hands. The rope burned. The wood splintered. But when Ellie swung for the first time and screamed, I'm flying, he felt something rise in his chest, pure, reckless joy. On Sunday morning, Lucas sat on the porch, sipping coffee while Mia braided Ava's hair and Ellie painted rocks to line the garden. The quiet wasn't empty anymore. It was full. Of laughter. Of the rustle of small feet on hardwood. Of bedtime stories read in silly voices. Of a woman's memory honored not with mourning, but with continuation. Later that day, Mia handed him a drawing. 4 figures holding hands. I added you and them, she said. And mommy's watching from the clouds. Lucas felt his throat tighten. The chalk blue sky seemed to shimmer a little brighter. That night, after everyone was asleep, Lucas walked into his study. The same chair where the twins had first appeared now faced a wall of photos. Sarah holding the girls as babies. Mia with missing teeth. Christmas mornings. Pancake chaos. Art museum snapshots. And in the middle, a photo of all 3 girls, arms looped, eyes wide and identical. Beneath it, in Mia's handwriting. Daddy's real job. Lucas smiled. He finally understood. Legacy isn't what you leave in your will. It's what you build in small hands, bedtime promises, and moments when you choose love, even when it's inconvenient, unexpected, terrifying. He closed his laptop, turned off his phone, and walked down the hallway, barefoot and quiet, like a man tiptoeing into the life he should have had all along. As he passed their room, Ava stirred in her sleep. "Daddy," she murmured. Lucas paused at the door. "Right here, sweetheart," he whispered. "Always." And for the first time in years, he slept, completely, deeply, as if the chair, the empire, and all the empty accolades had finally let go. Because he had.